Are we live? What's going on, everybody? Are we live? Are we live? Waiting on NYG Daily. He's late. Are we live? Let us know for live. Are we live? Are we live? Let us know. I'm waiting on you people to let me know if we are live. It all comes up to you guys. Will the chat let me know if we're live or not? Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? We live. What's going on? Thank you, Henry Coleman. Bam, bam, bam. What is going on? How's everybody doing today? Post draft. So we're hitting the summer. We'll have OTAs and stuff like that, but live streaming is something that we don't do a ton of, and I think I want to do a little more of. So NYG Daily should be here any minute, but he's late, so we're gonna confront him about being late when he does get in here. How's everybody doing? The come down from the draft is real. This week, I think I'm going to start working on some different type of videos. But got all the UDFA videos out, so 10 film breakdowns on new Giants players for from the draft, and then obviously all the free agents as well. So there's got to be 17 or 18 new players that you guys can watch on film breakdown. So we'll answer some questions, talk about the draft once he gets in here. What's going on, Michael, my guy? Let's see. Jones ranked 10 is a crime. What is he ranked 10 in? I also put out the Daniel Jones deep passing video today, which is something I usually do earlier in the offseason, but because there was so much like in limbo with the Daniel Jones contract and stuff, never got to it. And then we hit free agency and then hit the draft. So I put it out today. Once again, for Daniel Jones, efficient, like very efficient. When you adjust for drops, he's fifth best in the NFL throwing the deep ball. And just overall, if you don't count drops, he's eighth. So he's been efficient consistently since his rookie year. His rookie year wasn't super efficient, but also created a lot of big plays. But for the third straight year, his attempts went down on a per game basis, 1.4. So obviously that was by design with the Giants' new offensive pieces, Jalen Hyatt, Darren Waller, Paris Campbell. We've got to see those attempts go up. And I think they should go up by double, right? Because he was throwing over 4 20-plus yard passes a game his rookie season. This past year was 1.4. So I like 3 is like, I feel like a nice little happy medium there. Now will the efficiency numbers suffer? Probably a little, but hopefully they don't suffer a ton. But I always think it's good to put that information out there. I've been doing that since 2019. I did for his letter Duke numbers. So D'Angelo Jones does throw a good deep ball, but it's just there has not been aggressive. This past year, it was rightfully so with some of the offensive issues, and they were able to use the offense and scheme the offense well without having to do it. Where the Jason Garrett years, was it conservative, but it was just bad offensive play calling overall, not just the fact that they weren't aggressive. You can be aggressive without throwing the ball 20 plus yards in the air. And with Jason Garrett, I'd always chart the plays that had 2 play routes over 15 plus air yards, or two routes that were designed to go over 15 yards. You say, well, you can't attack deep. Well, you can throw the ball underneath on those type of plays, right? And you can get big plays, and Daniel Jones has always been better with that more space over the top. So it'll be interesting to see how, like, the offense, the Giants, Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka have shown that they will adjust their offense. Now, it's hard to adjust in season, and we saw the Giants offense hit a lull. That play action, run heavy stuff kind of got figured out, and it took them a few weeks to get out of it when they should have tried earlier. But once they did, they worked more to that shotgun, drop back, pass, and quick game stuff. You saw the offense look at its best, and you also saw more deep attempts in there, even though the first 2-3 weeks of the season was probably when the offense was just as flat out most aggressive. So we'll see. All right, NYG Daily told me he'd be here in 1 minute. What the hell is going on? Joining in 1 minute. D-Kid, appreciate that. I know I don't like to take a ton of super chats, but I do appreciate everyone, especially you, D-Kid. You're a Patreon already. Let's see. Giants versus Eagles. Oh, yeah, the Giants versus Eagles. So I'm not a Christmas celebrator. So part of me is like, yes, I have something to put my mind on that day instead of just being by myself, essentially. So I'm actually excited for them to be playing on that day, even though 99% of people aren't. But the Eagles are like the one team you look at on the schedule this year, and it's like, we just don't match up anywhere near them talent-wise. Like, it's any given Sunday, right? Like, it's always any given Sunday, but it's just you look at the team, even the 49ers, like, you look at every team we play, it's the Eagles are like, that's the team, where it's like, I just don't know if we have the talent to match up with that team and give them a run, even though our freaking backups did it in week 18. How you see Nico Rice says, how you see the wide receiver situation come with so many wide receivers, but no clear number one? Yeah, that's going to be the most interesting thing to see throughout camp and preseason, and once the season obviously gets rolling. Is you have all these guys, but you just don't have a number one. So Darius Slayton is the highest paid one. You brought in Paris Campbell on a fairly cheap deal. Jalen Hyatt was drafted. They liked him. I'm sure they would. If John Michael Smith wasn't there at 57, I bet they'd been comfortable taking him there. And then Isaiah Hodgins, who came on towards the end of the year. But we got him. We got NYG Daily here. What's going on, man? Why are you late?
Bobby, how are you? Sorry.
I'm pissed off.
I actually have you muted in my DMs, so that's why I didn't get the notification.
Figures.
I'm just kidding. I don't know. My
You also gave me the reply I hate more than anything in the world yesterday, and it happens to me so much where I don't like to ask anybody for anything, and you responded just sure, and that happens, and it's like a running joke with me and Justin. Like, I'll reach out to someone, and then they'll just say sure, and I'm like, motherfucker, dude, just say yes. Like, yes, sounds good. So when someone says sure, it makes me feel like a baller.
I'm sorry. The one thing I hate is when people wait an hour to respond back. It's like, dude, I know you always have your phone on you. Why do you need to wait an hour to respond back?
So I'm actually bad at that because I'll have my phone on me, but I don't look at my messages a ton. Especially if there's something going on in like football land. So I'm like looking at Twitter and I'm just not looking at my messages. But it's all good. We're here post draft. And I want to talk to you about the draft class and answer some questions. Because with the draft heaviness, I know you probably feel the same way. It's like you don't really get to hear, like, I don't know what anybody was saying during the draft because we were live the whole time. It's like, I don't know your opinion on anything. Like, you might hate this draft class.
No.
It'd be hard. It'd be hard to hate this draft class. This was I said it. This was the happiest I came away from our draft class since 2020, which I think 2020 was a solid draft class. You get a star left tackle in Andrew Thomas. You get a really good safety with star ability in Xavier McKinney. And your Mr. Irrelevant started games for you. You got two key special teamers in the 6th and 7th round. Darnay Holmes, who, fit what the last coaching staff did and started at nickel corner right away. So I like that. This class, especially day 2 and day 3. I just
day 2 was a special night. Day 2 was a real special night.
To get two guys that have been mocked to the Giants in the first round.
Right.
And no one now, if John Michael Smith was picked at pick 25, I probably wouldn't have agreed with it. But it's like, I understand it, and he's the best player at this position. I really love John Michael Smith. If Jalen Hyatt was picked at 25, I would have lost my mind. But those guys, but you also see the ability there with Jalen Hyatt and why he was mocked there. And to get those guys in the 2nd and 3rd round was just insane. John Michael Smith was the most mocked to player for the New York Giants through the pre-draft process, and they got him at 57. Like, again, the John Michael Smith's pick is the happiest a draft pick has made me since Andrew Thomas at 4 and 20.
Yeah, you really deserve to take a nice victory lap for Andrew Thomas because you put me on to him in 20. I remember watching your breakdown, and I'm like, holy crap, this is the guy. But anyways, yeah, when you look at the 2020 draft, it was, especially day 2, where it's like 3 guys that I put this out, I was like, these are 3 guys that I saw mock drafts having the Giants take at 25, and they got them in the 2nd and 3rd round. But to me, really, the offseason, regardless of what fan or sport, to me, it's about executing the plan. I call it's a process. And I thought top to bottom, from the moment the offseason started to now, the Giants had a plan. They knew what they wanted to do. They knew which areas they wanted to attack. They knew what they were looking for, and they went and executed it. So many times in the past, we've seen, hey, the Giants have X amount of dollars in salary cap space. They need position X, Y, and Z. Who are the top players available in free agency? And let's just go throw money at the problem. And what does that end up doing? It ends up, it looks good in year one, and then by year 2 and 3, you're like, how do I get the hell out of this contract? Well, I thought this year it was a more sound, more it seemed like they were all on the same page on what they were looking for. And from the moment they traded from Darren Waller, got creative there, they had the draft capital. And then in the draft, there were key areas that they wanted to attack, key guys that they were looking for, and they went and got them. Maneuvering around in the draft, kind of getting players. A lot of people think maneuvering the draft simply means just trading back and getting more draft picks, but it's also being able to know, hey, what other teams might be looking for, where a guy like Jalen Hyatt might be on the board, for a team that's picking, 4 or 5 spots ahead of you, you want to get ahead of that. So just a really sound the prospects themselves. I mean, Jalen Hyatt, you want to talk about speed, you want to talk about taking the top off the defense. That is a guy that is going to do that, and I think can do that immediately. A lot of people talk about the route tree and what his routes are. To me, let's just talk about what he's really good at, and that's taking the top off of defense. And that's something the Giants have not had in a while.
And being picked where he's picked changes.
Right.
Yeah, like if he's picked at 25, I'm not happy with that. At pick 73, it's like, okay, we have a guy who can come in and contribute from day one as that speed, and then develop into, hopefully a really good wide receiver 2, and if we're lucky, a wide receiver 1. And if he has all the athleticism, and that's the other thing, like when you talk about his route running, and there is issues with it too. Like I know people want to downplay it. There is issues with it, but he also was in an offense that didn't ask him to run routes. Like Cedric Tillman's a better route runner in that same offense, but Cedric Tillman was used in a different way. Cedric Tillman had to deal with press corners and guys manned up, where Jalen Hyatt got the free releases and stuff. And obviously Hyatt's the fast one, so that, they wanted to get him in those situations. But you've seen them, Joe Shane be comfortable drafting out of that type of offense with Gabe Davis, even though Gabe Davis played more of the Cedric Tillman role than the Jalen Hyatt role. So it's going to be interesting to see. And you get that speed. You get Paris Campbell, who's another outside-inside flexible guy with speed. Not as fast as he was coming out of college with all the injuries he's had, but still really fast. And then Darren Waller. Like you mentioned, it almost feels like we forget about Darren Waller because it happened in such a weird time of the offseason. I guess it happened during free agent, but it's like that guy is at worst the 3rd best receiving tight end in the NFL. Like he is elite at his craft. And he's not a guy where you got to throw contest balls. It's like, no, this guy separates. I have some bad breaking news. Daniel Jones pandering. I don't like.
I'm not a Knicks fan, but I do want the Knicks to win.
Who is your team? Are you? I feel like you're a LeBron guy or a Steph guy. I can't remember.
No. I'm a big Steph Curry fan, so not looking good right now. I'm not a Lebron fan.
Who's just winning the finals?
I don't know. I thought it was Golden State. Yeah, it is. Can I tell you what would be cool, in my opinion, is if we get Embiid versus Joker in the finals. I hate Philadelphia. I would not want Philadelphia fans to be happy, but just to see those two big men in the era of it's no longer about the big men, you don't need a center, just to have the 2 best big men in the finals and all the talk about the MVP. I think that would be pretty sweet.
Yeah, I just hate Embiid so much. And I just root for him to never get out of the second round his entire career. So I hate the Sixers more than any other team. The Celtics I hate the second most. So rooting for the Celtics in this series has made me feel gross. And the one time rooting for them, they let me down.
I would love if Jimmy Butler got a championship ring too, by the way. That would be great.
Yeah, dude, they legit might be able to. Jimmy Butler's real deal. I actually think the Lakers end up taking it, though. I do think they'll beat the Nuggets.
I hope not.
Let's see. All right, let's get into some questions.
Oh, you got questions for me too. Wow.
Yeah, let's see what we got. If the running back room is fully healthy, who gets more snaps, Matt Breida or Eric Gray?
In 2023, I would probably say Matt Breida right now. It's tough for a 5th round pick to come in and learn. I think Eric Gray has a chance to really be a contributor on special teams, but I would have to go Matt Breida right now. But this could be a situation where it's Breida by a line slide, and then later on in the season, it's split.
Saquon misses a game. Who are you giving more carries, Eric Gray or Matt Breida?
It depends when. We talking September, October?
Let's say week 11. So it's more fair for Eric Gray.
I mean, I like Eric Gray as a developmental prospect. Is he ready to get 20, 25 carries in his first year? I would tend to lean no right now. Maybe more of like
Yeah,
a,
yeah.
like it's tough to
I
really.
I really like Gray, and I like the way he runs. He makes the first guy miss. Now he's not going to be some like electric player, right? And he doesn't have the speed that a guy like Matt Breida gets. So if Saquon's healthy, I'm giving more carries to Breida. But
Right.
if Saquon goes down, I feel more comfortable giving Eric Gray you're going to split, but the majority share. And again, not 20 carries a game, but hey, you give him 12, you give Breida 7. I just feel like he's one of those backs that's built for the NFL. And that's another reason why I love this draft class. I love day 3. Like Eric
Yeah.
Gray, I think is going to be a solid back in the NFL. Trey Hawkins, I'm not going to bet on him to be good, but man, you don't see 6'2" guys who move like that available in the end of the 6th round. And I'm saving a take for our mailbag pod on Friday. But Javarius Owens,
Do you think he's going to be an instant contributor
I
in
really do
somewhat of
think
a
so,
capacity?
man. And it's not necessarily because he's amazing, because part of it is the safety room. But Javarius Owens, like, and what type of safety do the Giants need? They need someone down in the box. I
Right.
think he's the most physical that can play the box out of all the guys they have. You know, Bobby McCain is more of a nickel corner than he would be a box safety. Pinnock, I actually think, could play the box a little better than he gets credit for. From watching some Jets film from the year before. And then Belton just doesn't fit in the box really well, even though he's meant to be more towards the line of scrimmage, covering tight ends and man coverage.
You watch more film than me. With those two DBs they took on day 3, Hawkins and Owens, do they almost look like positionless defensive backs where you could see them line up, in the box? Even like a guy like Hawkins, who's a
Yeah, I
corner,
mean, Hawkins
he could,
likes
he
to
could be a
fight.
safety.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Hawkins
so
could definitely be a guy you see end up moving to safety in the NFL. I think he's talented enough to play corner, so I'd develop him there. Especially you kind of got like a log jam of that second safety after McKinney. And then Owens, like he's versatile, right? Like they played him all over the field, mostly from deep, but I see him having more of a box role in the NFL. Yeah. So and now there's some depth issues too on the defense. Like again, you don't have a good answer for the safety next to McKinney. You don't have a good answer after Kayvon and Aziz. You don't have a good answer for second inside linebacker, and that's why people got mad at me. Because on the draft recap podcast, and I said, like, hey, this is the happiest I've been with the draft since 2020, and probably more so than 2020. 2020, I just got Andrew Thomas and McKinney in the first 2 picks. That is the danger of trading away the picks that they did, right? Like they went 100 picks. I think they went almost 100 picks, after taking Jalen Hyatt before making their next pick. And do you think that they identified some players who went in that range that they would have liked to use? Yeah, absolutely. Like you don't have a second inside linebacker. That's a good option. You don't have any edge depth, and I think you saw that with O'Shane Ximines, that they signed O'Shane Ximines a couple days after the draft because they weren't able to get edge depth. So now,
but I do think there's still some edge guys available in free agency. Like if you're looking for a number 3 edge, like I think there are some guys right now that could come in and potentially solidify that spot for the Giants.
Who?
One that pops off is Leonard Floyd.
How much money do you think he's going to command? Let me look at his
Well,
numbers.
at this point in free, I mean, it's May 10th. We're 6 weeks, 8 weeks out of training camp. Like, at what point does Leonard Floyd, does it go from he's not going to get this is a vet minimum guy at this point? Like, what point do we enter that
he had
conversation?
9 sacks and 22 QB hits last year. Like he had a really good year. I bet you he's gotten offers of like $5 to $6 million, and he's kind of holding out for that one, the same way like a Logan Ryan did, that year that we signed him, or Davion Clowney has done. I think a couple times Clowney's done that. So I think he's kind of holding out to see what happens in camp. If someone gets injured in OTAs at the beginning of camp, because I would love Leonard Floyd, but we also are like the Dexter Lawrence contract, new contract, makes it to where it's like we might just have enough money to get through the season without having to touch Leonard Williams' contract.
Yeah, but I do think like they can. I think the number 3 edge rushing spot is more than just a vet minimum or UDFA. I think they need to really
Yeah, but they
considering the
didn't. So it's like they're kind of in the same spot. They have the same exact room as last year. Now, hopefully,
Well,
if
I think the
Aziz stays
opportunity is
healthy,
still there. The opportunity is still there for them to do it if they
yeah.
want to.
But I don't want to
Because
move around
still,
any more money either, right? Like I don't think we're a Super Bowl contender this year. I don't like for a 1 year like I don't want to move around money for a 1 year $6 million like contract for Leonard Floyd, which I think he's not like he's going to get some money out on the market at some point. He's not going to come in for $2-3 million. His numbers are just too good for that. He's probably the reason he's probably available is because he wants like 11-12 million dollars. You know, maybe he's in the similar situation that Hassan Reddick was a couple of years ago. So I mean, this is the exact edge group that they had last year. The exact edge group. Now, if Aziz could stay healthy and Kayvon takes a step forward, like that's a huge burden of relief. But it's just like there's issues. So it's like as much as they have improved, like this offense, there's expectations on this offense, right? Because even if Evan Neal sucks, like the expectation is to be good. You were drafted 7th overall. Like if Evan Neal comes in and sucks this year, it's a failure, right? And you know this, you don't put it on every single player ever. You know, you don't put it on one player. Evan Neal has to improve this year,
right?
You know, these
Evan
wide
Neal's,
receivers, you have too many to not have to be like you're never gonna have to run out there with freaking David Sills and Marcus Johnson as your starters for a week again.
right.
You know, hope to God not, because if we do, we have real injury issues, like 5 guys getting injured.
If you list the 5 most important things for the Giants to have success in 2023, obviously Evan Neal's, I don't know where you would put Evan Neal's development, but Azeez Ojulari staying healthy is up there as well.
Yeah.
Because when he's on the field, like it changes the complexion of their defense, because I think he's a really good player. And him,
he was awesome last year when he played.
Yeah. Just that Washington game, go back and watch it. The second one.
Scumbag Justin. Bowl to 201 first game, feeling good, pretty dope. We got almost 300 in here despite it being post-draft. Who is we, Justin? You're not here. You don't get to say we.
Okay. I was expecting Justin to be here. He's not here.
Yeah. Scumbag. What were we saying? Justin distracted me. He's not even here and he's distracting me.
5, you list the 5 things. Like if I would ask you, Bobby, give me the top 3 things that needs to happen for the Giants to return to the playoffs.
So obvious, like we're not like Daniel Jones being good as one, but it's like he played good last year. So like things that kind of have to change. Evan Neal's improvement is number one. Number one, because it allows you to use the speed. It allows you to use the speed around you. And it allows to see like, hey, Daniel Jones, we're going to take some shots this year. We're not going to be the most conservative offense in the NFL next year, and we're not going to ask you to play perfect ball like you did last year. Like we're going to take some more chances and create some more explosives. The defense creating some turnovers, right? That's they didn't create any turnovers last year. They were worse in interceptions. Also stopping the run, like Ashawn Robinson, Nunez Roches, Bobby Okereke. They have to be a team that can freaking stop the run, because if you can't, you can't play up to better competition if you can't stop the run. Like if you can't stop the run, you can't beat the Eagles. You just flat out can't, because that's the issue with playing the Eagles is like you could have the best game plan in the world for Jalen Hurts in their passing game. They just could run at will on us last year, So you got to be able to shut down something, and you got to be able to stop the run. And any team that's going to watch the film from last year, they're going to start pulling guys. Like I don't know why anyone didn't just change their whole run game plan against the Giants last year. It's like throw misdirection at them, they're going to be trash. So stopping the run.
Azeez Ojulari's health.
Azeez Ojulari's health, obviously, because he was really good.
To me, that it's so important because of how good he is when he played. I mean, I watched the Washington game, the Sunday night game, over again, and his impact just opens things up for everybody else on that defensive line. Like the drop off from Azeez to like the number 3 guy, and it's not just because the number 3 guy was a UDFA and Tomon Fox or O'Shane Ximenez. It's huge because of I think how good I'm really high on Azeez Ojulari. Like I don't know if you know that by now, but I really think if he can stay healthy, this is I'm not gonna say premier pass rusher, but this is a, dare I say, Pro Bowl caliber guy.
I mean, you got a front 4 Like
Yeah.
that's really nice. And we saw it
Right.
for little spurts last year, and whenever it was on the field, they did well. And Aziz made actual. A guy has a good rookie year, and then the expectation is like, well, year 2 is going to be freaking phenomenal, right? And Aziz was like, man, I hope we don't put too big of expectations on him. But he took actual growth as a second-year player,
Yes.
but just couldn't freaking stay healthy. And then the fifth one is now that Evan Neal got to be good. We have speed on this offense. Can we be aggressive and go for chunk plays while also not sacrificing being safe with the ball, right? Like, do we go back to 2019 DJ, where there's issues like that? But I don't think we won't go to 2019 turnover wise, because a lot of those were more fumbles and interceptions, and we have Andrew Thomas instead of Nate Solder playing left tackle, which is like the biggest, which is always been the most the thing that's been tied to Daniel Jones' success the most has always been Andrew Thomas since he got good. Obviously, now last year the scheme to build around him, but even with Jason Garrett, when Andrew Thomas was good, Daniel Jones was good in 2020 and 2020. I mean, remember after the Saints game, like week 4, it sucked that we were 1-3, but Daniel Jones was balling through those first 4 weeks of the year, and the biggest thing in that was that Andrew Thomas was playing really well despite the offensive scheme sucking and the talent around them sucking.
Second most important position in football, right? Left tackle.
Agreed. So there's a lot of things that they got to take, and then we got a tougher schedule. I saw research. Rick said we play the top 7 teams in EPA per year on defense next year, and 3 of those were in the division. So we play the top 7 defenses 10 times next year. Obviously, stuff changes from year to year.
You play the Jets too. They had a great defense, so yeah, it is going to be a tough schedule.
Is there any game that you're hoping looking to travel to this year with the schedule release out tomorrow?
Yeah, Las Vegas. Definitely want to. After my experience in Minnesota last year, I've made a concerted effort to go to multiple away games. Absolutely. Not including Washington. I don't refuse to go to Washington anymore.
Yeah. So the first thing I'm looking for is I try to go up there for end of November, early December for a game.
Yeah.
Where we tell everyone to come out. So that's the main thing I'm looking for in the schedule. And then it's when is the Miami game? Because if the Miami game's the first 3 weeks of the season, I'm probably not going to go. If it's later in the year, I'll probably go.
One of the funny things about the schedule releases, this time last year when the schedule got released, everyone's going through the games and everyone had L for the Colts. That's one game we're going to lose.
That was the easiest team we played all year.
It was the easiest game we ever played. So it's always funny when you see that, oh, that's an L. It's just hold on. Let's just get to that November week 13 game or whatever before we, start doing all that.
And record predictions are necessary, but also a little annoying. But it was and then you see the people who are 8 wins and people were attacking them, and then the people who pick 12, 13 wins and people attack them. But you forget, and I did it when I was putting together the Daniel Jones deep passing video today. We started 6-1 last year. There was people who were predicting to win less than 6 games, and no one would have blinked twice at that. I predicted them to win 6 games, and they won that in by week 7, which was just phenomenal. And also, did they play a weaker schedule last year? Yes, but they beat good teams. They beat the Ravens. The Jags won a playoff game. I know the Packers weren't great last year, but they were 3-1 when we played them, and we beat Aaron. Anytime you beat Aaron Rodgers, you shouldn't ever blink at that. It's not like they were a team that was totally devoid of talent. They just had issues.
Who are we starting at receiver in that game?
Marcus Johnson. Finally, they played Darius Slayton, and Darius Slayton went off, and that was the big y'all forgot about Slay, and David Sills. Or no, Richie James. Richie. It was Slayton, Richie James, and David Sills and Marcus Johnson. So David,
right now we look back on it, we're that's not that bad. But at the time, we're talking about Darius Slayton that was buried on the depth chart, who's got a resurrection and he's on the field again. Where it's at the time, it was a bad receiving core.
Well, it still is. Marcus Johnson and David Sills getting reps for you is very bad. Marcus Johnson, because David Sills got the most press about him. We forget how bad of a receiver Marcus Johnson was. Like, I think he had like a 30% catch rate for a guy that's fast. A guy that's fast shouldn't have that, and especially when Daniel Jones is your quarterback.
Wasn't he the receiver that Daniel Jones was like indirectly yelling at during the Jaguars game?
Yeah,
That
catch
was
the
him, right?
fucking
He
ball.
had dropped the pass. Yeah.
Like,
Daniel
it's
Jones yells at you. That means you're really doing something bad.
And then it was so funny. It was like, I can't believe defenses haven't picked up on this. Every time he's on the field, we are going play action. He's running a deep post, and Darius Slayton's running an over route underneath it every single time. I was like, I couldn't believe defenses didn't pick up on that. I guess they kind of did a little bit towards the end of the year. Breezy Mike says, is our swing tackle right now? So last year I was panicking about the swing tackle position, and then Tyree Phillips was signed.
Right,
Tyree Phillips is a swing tackle, right?
Is he still here? He's still here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Tyree
so now
Phillips,
the next 5 comments will be like, Tyree Phillips sucks. It's like, yes, backup tackles suck. Like, there's like, is there, how many teams in the NFL have a swing tackle who is good? The Bengals, who are trying to trade Jonah Williams, like.
Well, if you're gonna say Tyree Phillips sucks, tell me what swing tackles are better than him.
Exactly, that's the point.
Right?
Now, in camp, swing tackle was like a huge issue. There was one practice, and their backup tackles in practice that day were Josh Azudu and Marcus McKeithen, 2 rookie guards. 2 rookie guards were there, and it was like a big talking point on a podcast. I was like, this backup tackle issue, like, problem is an issue because Matt Gano retired with the neck issue. Matt Parrott wasn't back yet,
right?
And and Tyree Phillips was signed to fill that job.
I actually think Tyree Phillips is one of the better swing tackles. If you like,
yeah, he's got a lot of experience.
I don't have to sit here and go through it, but like when he played, it wasn't a disaster.
We had one of the better swing tackles in the league, and then because Nate Solder decided to take a year off, he became a starting tackle in Cam Fleming. But Cam Fleming's like one of those swing. Yeah, I guess Cam Fleming actually like starts for the Broncos, and like people like him now. Who's your favorite UDFA? I got a question from Northside saying, do you think Bryce Ford Wheaton could be a starter this year? I don't think so, but who is your favorite UDFA?
I mean, it has to be the Bryce Ford Wheaton, right? Like,
I thought you were a Tommy DeVito guy.
I am, but here's the thing about the Twitter, man. Like, you can't have fun. Like, people just take everything so literal. Tommy DeVito is a look.
Yeah, it's a joke, like.
Yeah,
it's like when, I'm not even going to say this player's name because we had him on the show, but it's like that's a fun thing about being a fan is like loving a third string player and joking about how he's great. Like Alex Tanney, like we literally made T-shirts for Alex Tanney being the Giants' all-time leader in completion percentage. Like that's
so. If you were to tell me there's a football player named Tommy DeVito, where did he grow up? New Jersey. Where did he go? Where did he play college ball? Rutgers. Syracuse, bam! Like he's like the prototypical New Jersey guy, and he's got a Sopranos name. It's just funny. I mean, I'm just having fun. Tommy DeVito. I'm not saying he's
maybe our biggest tweet from the draft cycle was Justin tweeting out the picture of him because like all the big media caught hold of it, and
I have that saved in my camera roll.
In the perfect Justin fashion, like doesn't realize like how like just Italian this guy is. He's just like, look at the chain TD, and everyone else is like, look how it's freaking Italian. Like this guy is like straight out of Jersey Shore.
I was thinking Sopranos, but yeah, Jersey Shore,
yeah. So shout out Tommy DeVito. I did a film breakdown. I went crazy this year. Northside says I feel like a lot of people get too hyped for UDFAs. Yes, they do.
They do.
That's part of being a fan is I like looking at UDFAs, not getting hyped for them, but looking at them because eventually some of them play, right? And it's nice to know who that player is.
And also, from a Giant fan perspective, the whole Victor Cruz thing, that's what gets people hyped every year. It's like,
and UDFAs do become good players. Like you have Victor Cruz, Nick Gates, and there's been other, guys along the road, and guys who can be coming in and can contribute. So, let's see. Rick Bowman, Research Rick says, are you surprised that Shane has signed players with notable injury histories given his statements on medical evals in the draft process? So
2 or 3 of those guys are 1-year deals.
The Campbell one doesn't surprise me at all because it's so much incentive laden. Like if Campbell injured tomorrow, misses the season, we don't really lose any salary cap because it's like it would be like a $1.5 million deal. Waller, I do think it's risky, but you gave up a comp pick that you got for a trade, and he's so good. The A'Shawn Robinson contract, though, is not cheap. Like, I didn't realize it. I guess I can go look at the. I know there's incentives in that. That one kind of got lost up in the draft process, but I was not expecting A'Shawn to get that type of contract.
It was a 1 year up to $8 million, but it's like $6 million base salary or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
So I wasn't expecting him to get that. So that one is a little risky. Let's see what it is. And they added a void year of there's a void year and next year of $2.1 million, right? So if no matter what, he's going to be cost against the cap.
Yeah. So it's a 1 year, $5 million contract with 4 guaranteed, and then there's 3 void years too.
Yeah, the bonus goes through 2025 and 2026. So
right,
that one was a little surprising, but they truly want to stop the run. So yeah, I was a little. I was expecting the A'Shawn one not to get done.
But do you agree that A'Shawn Robinson is a starting caliber defensive tackle in this league?
Yeah, definitely. Like I did a video on him. He was really good for the Rams. Now he's nowhere near like the Leonard Williams range of player,
right?
But he's definitely a starting caliber player. Let's see. Is Saquon going to be signed? Okay, yeah, we could finish off talking about Saquon, and then we'll do. Is Saquon going to be signed to a long-term deal? I can't get a read on this.
Me neither.
Where I have a feeling that in the building, they're like, they want him to play on the franchise tag, but they also know it's tough to just. It's as much as you want to talk, like it's a people business, right? And as much as you look at the Steelers and tagging Le'Veon was like that was good business, it's kind of it is cutthroat to do that to Saquon.
Yes. Can I give you the most logical explanation that I can think of when people ask me what's going to happen with Barkley? Every situation is different, right? When you look at the running back position, right? Obviously, historically speaking, paying a running back, you typically don't get the ROI, the return on investment. But Joe Shane is sitting there looking at the situation and saying, this is one of the most important players to my locker room. If I make him play on the tag, A, he's unhappy. B, what message am I sending in the locker room? I'm trying to change the culture. I've changed the culture, and I'm trying to develop a winning environment. What message am I sending to the other players if one of the faces of the franchise is, I'm not going to give him a long-term deal? Now, obviously, I'm not saying just cut him a blank check and say, here you go, write whatever number you want. But you can't just look at it as a Steelers Le'Veon Bell situation, which is a good example, and say, well, just do that. We can say that. We're fans, right? But as a GM who's in the building, as a head coach who's in the building, what message are you sending to the rest of your locker room if you tell Saquon, I'm not going to give you a long-term deal, or I'm not going to go negotiate in a mindset of coming to an agreement on a long-term deal?
So there's a few layers to this.
Big time.
And Saquon's best thing to do would probably be to hold out a training camp. The question is,
which he probably will if there's no agreement.
Does he though? Does Saquon Barkley hold out a camp? And also, the Giants did a great job PR wise by leaking out the $12.5 million to $13 million number without saying how much of it was guaranteed. Like that could have been the fakest average annual value of all time. Like we don't know. But if Barkley does sign the tag and shows up to camp week 1,
Sorry.
Yeah. If Barkley does sign the tag and shows up to camp week 1, the other players I don't think will care too much because Saquon will be there. Saquon will be making $10 million guaranteed this year. But if he holds out, the fans are going to hate Saquon if he holds out because that number of $12.5 to $13 million has been put out there. No matter what happens, no matter how fake it is, that is the number that the outside world is going to believe. And but the players will be kind of on his side if he does hold out. So it's going to be really trickery. And that deadline date for what is the deadline date for him to sign a long-term deal?
I think July 7th.
July 7th.
4 p.m.
Make sure we get a good idea on it. Yeah. So but whenever that is, that's clearly the key date, right? Because he's got to sign the tag.
Deadline spurs action, and like right now, 2 weeks ago when Joe Shane just refused to talk about Saquon Barkley, I just was like, wait a second, what's going on here? Like,
that's been a trend since the day after the season ended press conference.
right?
Like, I tried to not read in the press conferences too much, but there was a very clear different way that Joe Shane talked about Saquon compared to everybody else. Where with Saquon, it was straight business in his answers, not giving his agent a word. Where with Daniel Jones, he almost gave Daniel Jones too much, where he basically declared he was going to be back the day after the season and was gushing over him. With Saquon, it was like he answered questions about Saquon compared to Daniel Jones in a different way. So,
well, even Dexter and Saquon, like, because both of them were in contract negotiations, and the way he was talking about Dexter, it's like, yeah, we're going to get something done. And then you ask about Saquon, it's like, I don't want to talk about Saquon.
And yeah. And so, like, if we were talking about your star wide receiver that's playing on the franchise tag, like the owners, like the team wants to get something done. If Dexter Lawrence was playing on a franchise tag next year and didn't sign, like, they want to get something done. I don't think they want to get something done. I think they want him to play on the franchise tag. So it's like, will Saquon hold out of camp or into the season, or will the Giants, budge, like, if he does hold out of camp? So but if he signs the tag, though, I guess he would not have to sign the tag and not go to camp. All right, never mind. My mind got confused for a second. So that's the question of how long this goes out. So the longer it goes, the better it is for Saquon Barkley. But like,
even
Saquon Barkley's camp should be telling the Giants front office that we will not be at training camp and we will miss games. Even if they plan secretly to show up for week 1, if they miss all of camp, they should be saying, like, we are not going to play for you this season.
But wouldn't that mean you would call his bluff right there? I mean, I would call his bluff. Like,
yeah,
I think there's a 0% chance Barkley would sit out games.
You still sweat it. I mean, like Zeke with Jerry Jones, you still sweat it out. Like, I remember going into that week 1 in 2019 thinking, like, they might not have Zeke week 1, and then they got it done right before, like a week before the season started. Like, I remember rooting, like, come on, don't.
But I think once you get, like, Zeke's situation was, there was no deadline. If they don't come to an agreement by July 7th, the only option is the franchise tag. That's it. Like, there's no other, like, for him to play with the Giants, it's going to be on the franchise tag. So if he doesn't show up, it's not like the Giants can sign him to a long-term agreement like the Dallas Cowboys did with Elliott. Elliott shows up. It's like, hey, this is the only option. There's no other option. I think they can tweak the franchise tag number and increase it if they want to, but I mean, why would they? Have we ever seen that before? No. So it's a tough spot, but I just believe that you're trying to establish something here. He's one of the faces of the franchise. I don't know what impact it would have on the locker room if he's unhappy, not there, shows up late, questions about playing in week 1. I don't know. Do you risk that? It's tough. It's a tough decision to make.
I think it's the most complicated running back contract in some time, and people point out, like,
Yes.
I'm not anti-paying a running back, depending on who it is, because a lot of times, like the Todd Gurley's, those guys brought up, you go look at the last ones, like Henry, Chubb, and stuff like that, and even Cook, who, Cook may be out in Minnesota,
McCaffrey.
The contract, like, and even like the Panthers paid McCaffrey, they got a lot in a trade for him,
right?
So they're not going as badly as they were for some time, but Saquon has injury history and also has a history of not dealing with being banged up very well.
Right. Would you do the Chubb contract right now?
The what?
The Nick Chubb contract. If Saquon would accept that, would you offer that right now?
I mean, that's 3 years, 36.
Right.
No, I would be stern. I'm playing you on the tag. I'm like, because of the injuries and stuff, man, I would play him on the tag. Like,
see, a lot of people look at me as the anti-Saquon guy, but I'm here talking about paying him.
And I hate it because I love Saquon, and I don't want to lose Saquon from the Giants. Like, I know there is people who like just like their running back. I hate, not paying him, or they won't say they don't hate him, but like And I somewhat understand that, but I'm like, I think running backs, it's just, I do not want to lose Saquon Barkley, but I'm also like, his injury history worries me, right? And
Yes.
again, he's a guy who, even when he's banged up but playing, doesn't deal with that as good as maybe a guy like Derrick Henry.
Would you do like two years, 24, fully guaranteed? I'm just trying to get
You're paying
creative
him
here.
more than the tag though, which is like
two franchise tags plus a couple million
I mean,
extra.
2 franchise tags is 2 years, 22.
Yes, and I think you add two million extra just to get it at that 12 million sweet spot.
Yeah, I would probably be able to swallow that at the end of the day.
I mean, he's running back this year and next year
because he's going to be on the team this year no matter what, right?
Right.
So
right.
even if it went so badly, another devastating injury, that money for that second year, while it would suck to have to pay it, wouldn't be like franchise changing type stuff where it's like putting the Giants in a huge hole. So yeah, I would eventually get on it. But anything that's like giving him money in year 3, where like in year or so. Tennessee is not shopping Henry. That was a bad rumor.
Yes.
Dalvin Cook might be being shopped, but also Dalvin Cook's contract, I think, isn't bad now, right? Like, and he's played most of it out. Like, the idea of like a guy getting cut like in the 4th or 5th year of his contract, I'm like, see running backs. I'm like, come on, that's like every contract ever.
Well, it's a more shorter term agreement now. You know, like I think with some of these running back contracts, they're not going. You don't see 5-year contracts for running backs. Means to me, 3 years is the max I'll go with the running back. Like with Barkley, I'm not going 4 years or 5 years. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, so like they've gotten, like the Vikings have gotten 3 years of Dalvin. He didn't play great last year, but he wasn't horrible, but he didn't play great last year. And this is like the last year where it's like they have guaranteed money. So if they kept him this year, they could cut him no problem. There'd be $3 million of dead cap with let's see how much of savings. Yeah, like 12 mil of savings. So again, if a guy makes it through like all of his contract and then the last year you want to move on, I don't view that as a failed contract. Let's see. Raymond Malave says this guy is a fool. 2 year 24 is a no-brainer. He said you're a fool.
I'm a fool. I'm the one that asked the question. You're the one that was thinking about it. He's calling you a fool.
I know. I'm deflecting. I'm a fool. I didn't know that. All right, we went over for 45 minutes. All right, let's get one more question in there.
I said 2 years 24 fully guaranteed. I didn't say 2 years 24, just 1 year guaranteed. So that's a little bit different.
So it's pretty interesting though. I hate the Saquon conversation because there's so many layers to it, and everyone's and nobody wants to admit that. It's like everyone's just so in stark contest of like, this offense needs him. It's like, yeah, it does, but it didn't. It's like he carried this offense. It's like, no, he was a very big contributor, but he didn't carry it outside of week 1.
Right.
Maybe the Bears game, but that was because Daniel Jones got hurt.
The offense looked its best when they put the ball in the quarterback's hands, not the running
and
back's
Saquon
hands.
is like we kept on saying it, like, stop force feeding this 20 carry a game Saquon stuff. Less volume, like make him less volume, more impactful. And that was when the offense started got out of this lull. Like, yeah, the first 5 weeks of the season, force feeding was working great, and then teams kind of figured out our run scheme a little bit, and then they just kept on doing it, and then teams kind of figured out their play action, and there was that like 3 to 4 week stretch where the offense was really bad, and then they got out and started doing more drop back passing. Let's see. All right. He was literally the reason we won the Vikings. Like again, yeah, he had a big part of that Vikings game. Daniel Jones had like a historic playoff game in that game too. Like, yeah, so it's like, and that's the thing. So these comments are proving exactly what I'm talking about, Weiss. There's so many layers to it, but it's just like he either didn't mean shit or he's the only reason they won. Like, yes, a huge part of what they won. There's also an injury history. There's a running back history. There's so many layers to it, and I honestly hate talking about it. So I don't know how we got goaded into talking about it. But
because there's two sides to the conversation, and depending on what answer you give,
like 20 sides with the Saquon.
No. I'm saying it's either like don't pay running back, get him out of here, and then there's pay him no matter what. Where it's like, no, there's like you said, there's layers to this conversation that needs to be had There's pros and cons to it. It's more complex than just don't pay a running back. He's the best player on our offense, pay him whatever it takes. Like there's more to it than just those two options.
Did you ever watch that boxing match that Mike Tyson did a few years ago?
Against the other boxer that's old too.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. I just remember there was I can't remember the rapper's name he was on the like announcing team, and he just said
Snoop Dogg, right?
No, it was. I think Snoop Dogg was a part of it, but it wasn't Snoop Dogg.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
he just kept on saying there's levels to this the entire time, and
right. Yeah,
it's the only time anyone says there's layers or levels to something. I just think of that, like him saying that 9 times. The tweets were hilarious. People were like, "How many levels are there to this?" Like you keep Roy Jones is who it was.
Yes, I've gone back and forth with the Saquon thing about 15 times since the season ended,
and that's what the tag is. If you are a Giants fan, the tag is the best option. But it's just like, this is a people's business, and Saquon, whether you like it or not, is a face of the franchise, beloved in the locker room. Like those guys are tight, and
that stuff matters.
And he should take this like to heart, and so, but credit to Saquon for having the year that he did after 2021, which was atrocious, and it wasn't just offensive line issues. Like it was really, really bad, like what he looked like on the field in 2021 to come back and do what he did. All right, we're gonna end this. Go follow NYG Daily Weiss at NYG Daily, the NYG Weekly Podcast. I got to catch up your draft recap. I haven't got to catch up. I listen to everyone's draft recaps like 2 weeks after, once everything settles down. So I got to check.
So a lot of talk about process, man. If you like process stuff, you listen. You can't do results in April and May, man. Like we'll see the results, but just look at the process of how they got their guys. Last 2 years, right? Last year, we don't have depth. We don't have salary cap space. We need to add players, trade back, get more picks, added 11, 12 guys. This year, we're looking for starting caliber players. There's 3 guys that we identified. We went and got them. Deontay Banks, we went and got him. If Deontay Banks turns out to be a lockdown corner, do you care about that 5th and 7th round pick that they gave up? No.
So I'm not in full bloom love with Deontay Banks. Like I see the talent, I see the ability, but I'm also like I do have worries about him. Now again,
that's all fair. I'm not here to tell you that. I'm not here to sell you.
Let me ask you this: pre-draft, would you have said I would trade what we did to move up 1 spot and draft Deontay Banks, or take what the Bills offered to drop back 2 spots? And I think they offered a 4th, so you would have dropped back 2 spots and got an extra 4th rounder.
Seeing how the draft played out, I would probably have done neither and just stayed at 25. Yeah,
I think that's probably what I would have done too. Now, again, there's different people have different opinions on draft prospects. Where, again, I just wasn't like I have worries about Banks. Now, again, you see all the talent in the world. You have Jerome Henderson, like he has all the ability to become a great corner, and and then I'm like, hey, I shouldn't have given a shit about that 5th and 7th round pick. The 7th round pick I don't care about, but the 5th does mean a little something,
right? But my whole thing about it is, you have an opinion on a player, that's fine, but we will see the results. Like right now, look at the process. What did they need? They had needs at corner. They had needs in the interior of the offensive line, not just center, interior of the offensive line, and receiver.
Oh yeah.
Well, like how they went about it, like that is the right process. They might not have picked the corner that you liked most or the receiver that you liked most, but how they identified their problems this offseason and attacked them, to me, that shows the right process.
Agreed. And
results,
I think
we'll see.
Like getting JMS at 57 is insane. Right. And then like getting Hyatt, like I have no problem with that. You moved up 16 spots, right? Like you're gonna have to give up something to do that, but to go identify a guy you like. But I'm also like, yes, process matters. Right, like process matters, and Joe Schoen. I'm confident Joe Schoen has good process, but something I love about football is that you could have the best process in the world
and get the wrong results. Absolutely,
you got to be good at picking players. Like that's what matters at the end of the day. Like we're not going to look back at these 2 drafts and be like, did they do things right the process wise? 3 years from now, we're looking at how many guys did we hit on.
You are 100% correct.
Hey, Dave Gettleman. I agree. Like Dave Gettleman trading back for in 2021, That was great process, and they did it again. They got extra picks, and they got guys like Daniel Bellinger.
Right.
But you could have had Rashawn Slater and Kayvon Thibodeau, or Micah Parsons and Evan Neal, and I think I would take that more than what ended up happening. So at the end of the day, what matters? Now, you could have picked someone better. You could have picked Christian Darrisaw at 20, and it goes from a good trade to the best trade ever. So, all right, let's get out of here. I said we are going to end like 25 minutes ago. So go follow at NYG Daily. Go check out his podcast, NYG Weekly. Appreciate you, big dog.
Love
See
you
everybody
as always.
else.
We'll see each other in training camp, right?
You're going to come?
I am. I have isolated like 3. I'm waiting for the schedule to come out, but I will be there. Yeah.
We do live streams after every practice, so we'll make sure we get you on one of those afterwards.
Yeah, it's going to be hot, but I'll be there.
Yeah, it's actually. God, I keep on saying we're going to end, but you keep on bringing it up. So it is hot,
well,
right?
I haven't talked to you in a while. Typically,
I know. The draft cuts out like all communication I have with anybody. So it is hot, but I was there for 3 weeks and it's hot. And then when I walked out of the airport back into Florida, and the humidity just like it's literally feels like it's punching you in the face, like the difference between like New Jersey in August and Florida in August. But no one gives a shit about the weather, Bobby. All right, see you guys. Let's go Big Blue.